Welcome, low ego action heroes. I'm Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. We are a full service CX and UX consultancy. And this is my Axure 10 Core Skills course. I've been using Axure since February 2011, and I've been teaching it for many, many years. And in fact, I've been one of Axure's recommended trainers since 2014. This course is designed to take you from super Axure newbie or Axure afraid all the way through to confident intermediate. So if you've landed on this one video, there are many, many others. Please check our Axure lessons playlist for a lot more videos about using Axure. The Delta CX YouTube channel has over 500 videos on it as of when I'm recording this in December 2021, and I hope you'll subscribe and join in some of our live streams. I'm live usually 3 or 4 times a week with teaching UX research and design, talking about CX, helping people get into the profession, helping leaders and managers, and of course, don't forget Tuesday, office hours, Ask Me Anything. So subscribe and hang out here. So thanks for being here. Please subscribe and let's jump into that next Axure lesson.
Let's practice writing some interactions by playing around with checkboxes. So let's grab some checkboxes and let's drag them out and let's make them say some different things. So I'm going to quickly create something that says check all, because you typically do have some sort of check all option when you are giving people checkboxes. So let's say I'm going to let people check from fruits, which is or are their favorite fruits. Let's say we've got apples and we've got bananas. Then let's copy paste these two and let's get some other checkboxes out there. There we go. And I'll call this one kiwis, and I will call this one strawberries. You can name them whatever you like. You can say cats, dogs, fish, birds, whatever you like. The purpose of this lesson is to learn making the check all checkbox, check other things, and making this a little bit more realistic while watching out for a trap in Axure. So let's walk through this. Let's say that when I check the check all checkbox, and this is going to be a tongue twister, all of these fruits get checked off. All right, let's do it. So the action happens here. When somebody checks this, then all of these get checked. Let's write our interaction. Now, you might wonder, what is the right event? And when Axure introduced selected or unselected down here, people got really excited and they said, oh yeah, every time you're building like checkboxes and radio buttons, just say selected. If someone checks the box, it's been selected. And if someone unchecks the box, it's been unselected. Cool, use it for everything. And I read those blog posts and I was sad. I'm not going to use this. And at the end of our lesson, I'll show you why we didn't build with this. For now, we're just going to build, and then at the end I'll show you why we chose what we did. I'm going to choose click or tap, and the main reason is that I want to make sure that the checkbox is being checked because a human clicked it or tapped on it. And you might be thinking, Deb, are you okay? Like, what else would happen here other than someone clicking on the box and checking it? Aha! Wait until the end of the lesson and you will see what else could happen. So I want a human to click or tap on this. Now, let's again think about the user's intention. When someone checks this off, they intend to check all these off. Okay, so what's our action? Well, our action would be check all these off. So I can say set selected, apples to true. Remember, true means truly selected. It'll be checked off. Oop, bananas to true, kiwis to true, and strawberries to true. Okay, when someone clicks on this, check all these off. Now's a great time to test that out. I call it baby step testing. Let's do this in baby steps. Before we build too far, let's make sure that what we were trying to build is even working. So let's refresh and let's try it out. I'm going to check this box. Ooh, they all got checked. Now, we didn't teach Axure yet what happens if we uncheck this box where they would all get unchecked. So we're going to have to build a little bit more. So I'm going to double click and go back into our editor. Now let's think about what we learned when we talked about the basics of interactions. We have our event, click or tap. We have our action, set selected. We have our targets, apples, bananas, kiwis, and strawberries to true. What we don't have here is a condition, because if we really think about this, we only want these to all be checked off if somebody clicked on this and they clicked on it to check the box. Because if they click on it to uncheck the box, we wouldn't want all these to be checked. So as soon as you are starting to think this out in your head and you're thinking, I only want this to happen if, you need a condition. So let's say if checked. Now again, that's just a friendly name that I'm writing to remind myself. Users typically don't see the names of our cases, but that will help me and future-proof this later for myself and others. Why did Deb write this interaction? What does it even do? Well, if somebody is checking this box, what should happen? But now we can't just stop at writing the name. We have to have the condition that matches what we said. So if selected of this equals true, right? So if you haven't seen Axure before, this probably feels a little bit scary. Like, wait a minute, is this English? Is this good English? What is this? Remember that Axure interactions and conditions grew out of programming languages. It's trying to make programming languages easy and accessible for everybody without you having to write lines of code. So we are going to have to adjust our thinking a little bit so that we think more like Axure. We have to speak Axure's language. Axure's not going to speak ours. Axure's just a robot, and the robot does what we tell it to do. So we have to see, what do we want to tell it to do? Okay, so let's start with the easy part. If selected equals true. Okay, so that means if something is checked off. Now the question is, if what is checked off? And Axure says, this. Now you're going, what's this? Well, this is whatever we clicked on to start the interaction. Whatever is selected in our workspace right now, that's the check all checkbox. So this is always Axure shorthand for whatever is selected on the screen right now, whatever we're working on. So in this case, it's the check all checkbox. Now that's correct. If the check all checkbox is truly selected, then we want the other thing to happen. So this condition sounds right. But if that's a little bit tough for you to wrap your head around, it does take a while for some people to get used to this. You can go the long way and just say the check all checkbox. If the check all checkbox is selected true, which means there is a check mark in it, that's our condition. You might say, Deb, where's the rest of it? Yeah, that was back on the other screen. So now it looks like this. If the check all checkbox is truly selected and people click on it, set all of these selected to true. So if people are clicking and now it's truly selected, do the thing. Now, is that the right condition? Did I write that correctly? Maybe, maybe not. That's why we're going to test, because maybe I broke it and I have to think about it and fix it. In this case, it worked. So that is a nice relief. So if selected of check all equals true, and people are clicking here, then check these off. And always think about the user's intention. What does the user or visitor or customer expect to happen right now? They would expect that if they click on this and they're checking it off, that all of these get checked off. Now we need to write the other case. Now, why is that another case? You might be thinking, hey, Deb, I just need a new interaction. And I needed to say if they click or tap and it's the other thing. Oh no, click or tap is grayed out. Why? Because Axure doesn't see that as a completely new interaction. We already created something for clicking or tapping. We just need to add to it because there's an possible outcome other than our first one. When you have an event like click or tap that has more than one possible outcome, like, hey, they could be clicking to check the box and check off all the fruits, Or they could be clicking to uncheck the box and uncheck all the fruits. That's two possible outcomes. When you have multiple possible outcomes, your interaction needs multiple, what Axure calls, cases. So we can mouse over here and see add case. And the case is, what if it's unchecked? Now, you might say we need to write the condition. We can write the condition for practice. Let's do it together. If selected of this equals value, false. We already did if selected value of this, or the check all checkbox, equals true. So now we would need the opposite one so that we have the, what should Axure do in case of this other scenario? As soon as you're thinking of other scenarios or possible outcomes, you just need multiple cases, which will be driven by the conditional logic, because then Axure will look at this and know what to do. Axure can say, aha, when someone clicks, I'm going to check if the check all checkbox is selected or unselected. If it's selected, I'm going to do this. Or else, see the else? Or else I'm going to do this. Now, when you have only two possible outcomes, you can get away in Axure with not writing the second condition. You still need the first condition, but you don't need the second condition, because either Axure is going to do this if this condition is met, or else it's going to do this. So just for practice, you can write the full condition here. But when you have something that's binary and either it's on or off, visible or invisible, checked or unchecked, you don't always have to write the second condition if there's only two. Now, we're going to learn in a lesson later 3 possible outcomes. So yeah, we need to write all those conditions. We don't want the Axure robot to be guessing. But we didn't write our actions here. So notice we've got if this is unchecked, and we've got the condition, but we never told Axure what actions to take. So we need to say, set selected of apples to false. So remember, it's false. We want apples to be unchecked. Add a target, bananas, false. And this is a little bit slow and manual, but if you want to tell the Axure robot what to do, you have to do it. And ultimately, even though this feels a little slow, it's only going to take us seconds to do. And then it'll be done. So if the check all checkbox is truly checked, check these all off. Or else, if it's unchecked, uncheck these. Alrighty, let's give it a try. Check. Yes. Uncheck. Yes. Now, one thing I typically get asked at this point of the lessons is someone will say, hey, wait a minute. I just noticed one of my choices was toggle. Why wouldn't we make this much easier on ourselves and say toggle? Now, toggle doesn't work in this case. I'll show you why. Let's say we go here. Because first of all, what is toggle? Toggle says in a binary world where something is seen or unseen or checked or unchecked or on or off, just do the other thing. Just flip back and forth between these two things. That would be toggle. What happens if someone goes, oh, I like kiwis. I also like strawberries. Hey, you know what? I like all of these. If clicking the check all checkbox toggled all of these, can you guess what will happen? Say it with me. You would click the check all checkbox. Apples would toggle to on. Bananas would toggle to on or truly selected. Kiwis would toggle to false. And strawberries would toggle to false. And you would have 2 on and 2 off. That would not match a check all experience. The check all experience is when all 4 are checked. So in this case, toggle exists. You can play with toggle, but toggle is not right for the user's intention here. The user is not clicking check all to toggle these things to the opposite state that they're in. Check all is intending to check all. So do not get sucked into the siren song of the toggle. We'll see it in other places, and you often don't want it. I rarely build with toggle because I am typically giving Axure very, very specific commands on what I want it to do in each of my cases or scenarios. So be careful of toggle. It might not work the way you think. Let's build a little bit more on this. What if I uncheck apples? If I uncheck apples, I think you would uncheck the check all checkbox because they're not all checked anymore. So let's build that. Hey, Axure, if someone clicks, or you could even say unselected here. Now, why did that work? Because if apples is being unselected, then chances are the check all checkbox is not going to be checked because apples has been unselected, so they're not check all. But again, if you'd like, we can do it through click, we can do it through unselected. The only difference is that if we build with click, we have to add the condition to say if someone is unselecting apples, because they could be clicking apples to select it. We have to be clear that they're clicking apples to unselect it. But just for practice, let's erase this, and let's say we're going to build on unselected, because then we don't need the condition to say if they're clicking on apples and selected false as the condition. We can just say unselected, and Axure says, oh yeah, that means that this checkbox became unselected. Then what's the action? We want Axure to go to the check all checkbox and unselect it. So set selected to false means go unselect something, which in this case would uncheck it. Which thing are we unchecking? That's our target, the check all checkbox. Let's take a look at how this works. Check them all, uncheck apples. Oop, I'm clicking. There we go. And it unchecked the check all because apples became unselected. That told Axure to go ahead and do the interaction. Now you might think, okay, now I want to check apples. Hey, I want the check all checkbox to be checked because all of these are checked. We're going to learn that in a later lesson called listeners. That is the easiest way to do this, but it's a little bit more of an advanced technique, so I like to teach it later in the series. But let's take a look at what I was warning you about at the beginning of the lesson. Why, if we built on unselected for apples, why didn't we build on selected and unselected over here? Well, I'm going to copy paste it and show you what would have happened if we did. You don't have to work along with me. Just watch this for a moment and you'll see why. We'll do this second set down here. You'll see why if we had done selected and unselected, that would not have been good. So let's do it. I'm going to go into our editor and I'm going to cut this and I'm going to add it to an event that says if selected. And paste it. And note, I don't need the condition anymore. So I'm going to exit out. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to cut this one. And I'm going to remove the clicker tap. And I'm going to say event unselected. And I'm going to paste. I'm using paste on my computer. And of course, we don't need the condition anymore because now we have the condition built in to the event. The event says it's been selected. The event says it's been unselected. We don't need a condition to say, hey, Axure, check if this thing was selected or unselected and decide which case to run. Now we have if checked, set this. If, well, let's take out if unchecked. This is really if unselected. I'm just going to clean up the name. The naming doesn't matter, but I'm just going to clean up the naming because you're going to get this file later and it should represent what we've built. Alrighty, let's see how that works differently than, and we still have apples unchecking this check all checkbox. So let's walk through the whole testing cycle again. Check, looking good. Uncheck, looking good. Check, looking good. Now what happens if I uncheck apples? Remember, if we uncheck apples, it's supposed to uncheck the check all checkbox. Hey, what happened? Do you know? We ended up getting a domino effect. So I'm going to show you something called the console. It's up here. Do you see this X in a square? It's the console. And the console is going to watch everything Axure does so we can troubleshoot. It's really handy. Check all. Okay, so Axure says, look, I'm a good little robot. I saw the checkbox get selected, so I selected all the other ones true. And then let's say we uncheck apples. Uh-oh, what did Axure do? Axure says, first, now all of these say checkbox in parentheses. Do you see this? That's because we didn't give them names. Axure was showing us this stuff in our interactions because they had words on them. But if we take a really quick moment and we give them names, check all checkbox. So again, I like to name things what they are and name them what they are. So everything gets the word checkbox at the end so that I can easily find it later and understand what it is from a list. So I'm going to quickly give everything names so we can see in the console exactly what's happening. That will tell the story a little bit better and why we didn't use selected and unselected in the first place. All right, I've got everything named. Refresh. Okay, so I checked this off. Let's take a look at how this is explained to us. Okay, the check all checkbox got selected. So, and if it's selected, do all this. Groovy. And then apples, whoa, hold on. So let's take a look. Notice they're time stamped. This is 4 p.m. for me. The apples checkbox got unselected, so I set selected the check all checkbox to false. Very good, Axure. You are a good robot. That's exactly what we wanted to do. I noticed that the check all checkbox became unselected, which happened because of this. And so I'm a good robot. I did that thing you told me to do. You told me that if the check all checkbox becomes unselected, I should unselect all of the fruits. Let's watch that again. Check all. Axure says, okay, I saw that the check all checkbox got selected, so I did this. Apples. Apples and unselected. So we created an accidental domino effect by saying selected and unselected for this check all checkbox. Now, why did this one work? Because this one was on click or tap. Click or tap requires that a human has interacted with it. A human click, a human tap. The selected and unselected do not require that a human has touched it. It could be selected or it could be unselected because a human clicked on it, and it can be unselected because of a domino effect where something else unselected this. An interaction unselected this, now we have the domino effect. I hope that's made some sense. I hope that's been clear as to why we have to be very careful about the way we write interactions. It's good to test them because if you had written it with selected and unselected, as some blog posts and video people suggest, and then you had tested it, you would have seen it was behaving unrealistically because in reality, if I check all, let's do both of them at the same time. Great, they're both checked. If I uncheck apples, only this should uncheck. I didn't uncheck these. But if I uncheck apples here, uh-oh, they all got unchecked. Now this feels broken. If it feels broken, we've got to go and troubleshoot and fix it. Now, one more thing to know is I can go into apples and I can take the entire interaction, the entire case. I can say copy. I can click on bananas and I can say paste. I did Control V on my keyboard. And Axure says, hey, when this becomes unselected, set the check all to false. Because that's true. All of these work the same way, which means I can copy and paste these all the way across. Let's try it. Check all, uncheck kiwis, and the check all becomes unchecked. So when things behave similarly, you can try copying and pasting, but we're going to see some examples later where uh-oh, we copied and pasted, but it didn't do the right thing. So even when you copy and paste, you still want to eyeball it to see if it looks like it's going to do what you intended, and then you still want to test it so that we can make sure things are behaving the way we want. So we'll leave these checkboxes here for now. We'll circle back to them for our later lesson on listeners. But for now, that's checkboxes, and you've learned a little bit more about interactions. See you in the next video.